This is a public service announcement that I'll be putting on all my channels. I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Hi, everyone. This is Doug. We're going to have a hopefully interesting and informative commentary on CNN Analyst's blunder. He ridiculed RFK on the contingent election law, and he's completely wrong. I researched it as an attorney, so I don't know if other outlets have yet opined on this, but I'm giving you the first opinion that I know on the internet. And so this analyst on August 23rd said that RFK was cuckoo for cocopoffs when he and called it gibberish that claimed that he could still become president after suspending his campaign. Wow. The fact that they didn't clue into what he was saying just shows how what he was saying all along in the video, in his speech, is they're so biased they don't even listen to anything he's saying. And if you don't know the law, and if you're commenting on a presidential election and you don't know the contingent election law in the 12th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, you shouldn't be a media analyst on elections, because that is. And if you've had this whole time three parties, or yes, well, three people seeking the presidency where there could be a split that not one of them gets 269 electors, that can throw the election towards the third candidate, believe it or not. And it actually happened that the losing candidate won the election in 1823. I think it was 1823. We'll get into the details here in a minute. Is the person who came in second is given the presidency. You say that can't happen. This is a democracy. Hey, it is a democracy, but this rule caused the pressure to go the other way, and it went in favor of John Quincy Adams, and Andrew Jackson loses the election. Now he wins the next election cycle because the people were upset about losing it the first time. But anyway, it doesn't matter. This shows you the CNN analyst spoke out in an absurd way, and it just shows something's wrong in our democracy when we have people who are put in power, put in influence to tell us what the election laws are, and they don't even know, and they ridicule a candidate. The one thing I've never do with RFK, if I were a person, even if I didn't like him, I would never ridicule him when he's talking about the law, because this guy is a lawyer. And you look like a fool now, whoever this was, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and you should go on air and apologize on CNN. So anyway, I don't know if that'll happen, but at least have some integrity and admit you were wrong. Anyway, I want you to watch 2 minutes of RFK Jr.'s entire discussion of this particular issue, where he knows he can't win on an electoral basis, meaning he's not going to get 270 votes, but then he's going to tell you he has a way of making it to the White House, even so, through the contingent election law. And he actually quotes that name, and that's key, because that's how you would look it up as a lawyer. If I want to find out, if I was that CNN analyst and I didn't have time to run to the anywhere else, I just go to my laptop and type in contingent election law, because that's what he cited. That's what RFK cites. So in this 2 minutes, pay attention when he gets to the contingent election law and says that's his path to victory to the White House. And you'll don't laugh, because that's actually, he's correct.
Here's the good news. While mainstream outlets denied me a critical platform, they didn't shut down my ideas, which have especially flourished among young voters and independent voters, thanks to the alternative media. Many months ago, I promised the American people that I would withdraw from the race if I became a spoiler. A spoiler is someone who will alter the outcome of the election but has no chance of winning. In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless systematic censorship and media control. So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours, or ask my donors to keep giving, when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats, with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it, and not not ending it. My name, my name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible. In fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269. And I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election. But
so just so you know, what I'm going to play next is a clip that includes a little bit of the end of that. And on CNN, they were playing the entire speech. They were somehow occasionally interrupting and asking questions. I don't know why they were doing that while people are in a speech being aired. But anyway, regardless, they show him every disrespect that you possibly can. But the point is that he gets to this point where he's going to talk about the contingent election, and watch what follows from the CNN analyst that calls him like this is Cuckoo from Cocoa Puffs.
I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible. In fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269. And I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election.
So he's saying that he's taken himself off of these ballot access challenges in states where he would be a spoiler, right? Mm-hmm. These battleground states, like, tell me if I've got this right, Doug. But when it comes to a red state or a blue state, you can sort of, if you want to vote for him, you can then register how you feel about him. And then in the crazy possible chance of a 269 tie between Trump and Harris, then maybe he can just ride that all the way to the White House?
Yeah, I was watching that, and Donald Trump last week stood and said in front of a bunch of groceries and said, I haven't seen any Cheerios in a long time. I had Cheerios for breakfast. This was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And trying to get any logic out of that is good luck with that. Because it's, one, you can't understand what he says. Two, if you can, you can't understand what he says. And reminded of a line in Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles when somebody gets up and gives an indecipherable speech. He says, who can argue with that? That's authentic frontier gibberish. And that's exactly what that is.
Yeah. So how embarrassing is this to that guy who said it was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? It's huge, huge. So let me just fill you in here. In Bobby Kennedy's speech, he said he could still win after his limited endorsement of Trump by the contingent election rule. Now let's read this. This is so I want to let you know I do subscribe to him. I like him as a candidate, so I've always wanted to know what's going on. And this was August 24th, the very next day after that speech. He explains this. And here's the rule, and I'll confirm this in a minute, separately from other sources. If no candidate wins 270 electoral votes, a contingent election will take place. In this situation, the election is decided by the, guess who? The U.S. House of Representatives. Now, I'm just going to pause right there. The U.S. House of Representatives is currently controlled by a majority of Republicans. Now, are they a majority of Trump Republicans within the ranks? Well, I would say there's a significant number of non-Trump Republicans in the Republican Party, which means you could have an alliance between the House of Representative members who are also don't like Trump, but they also believe or agree with RFK on his view of, no child, let's get rid of the child injuries and the bad foods and all that stuff. And then let's stop this war in Ukraine. And let's do, protect the border wall, whatever the things he agrees with Trump on. And you could see there could be a definite consensus in the middle with RFK voters in league so that those votes of RFK can be matched with those two House of Representative groupings, and he could win the White House easily. This process was last used in the 1824 presidential election. I'm going to read you about that in a minute. And you'll see the person who came in second in the vote, in the electoral vote, wins because of the contingent election law in the U.S. Constitution, 12th Amendment. There are enough states whereby, let me stop it. start over again. This process was last used in the 1824 presidential election. There are enough states where Bobby would be considered the moderate candidate, and there's a good chance he could win in this scenario. That's what I just was saying. He could be viewed as the moderate on the Democrats and the Republican sides within the both parties. And the actual funny thing is that the existential issues of RFK, which are, get out of the forever wars, take care of the children from childhood injury and all that stuff, United States health, these are his main concerns. Is that overlaps with a lot of moderate Democrats, and even Democrats are more like in the Jimmy Dore camp, which they don't like forever wars and things of that sort. So you could see an alliance between the moderates and the Jimmy Dore Democrats is they could line up with some Trump voters or Trump electors who are willing to say, well, let's RFK decide if he wants Trump to be in his administration, but we'll put RFK as the president. So this is not beyond the realm of actually happening. And this guy's calling it cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, so what could this CNN analyst have known about if he just did some legal research, even on the fly? Just the words contingent election. That would have been enough. A contingent election. Protect democracy. Look at what date this is, my friends. August 22, 2023. 1 year and 1 day earlier than that speech that he just gave. This whole thing was spelled out and even explains to you in plain English how the person who got less votes was made president of the United States. Yeah, it's funny. Anyway, here is one of the drawings at the time, and then it was a chaotic foot race. The resulting contingent election was decried as the corrupt bargain. So the deal was made, and the person who had lost the election wins by the contingent election rule. Isn't that amazing? In America, these are the things you cannot expect or know about. Means, like in the example of the CNN analyst, don't put your foot in your mouth without first doing a quick research on the internet. That's what I would have done. Then this is what the author of this article says in 2023, 1 year, 1 day before that speech by Mr. Kennedy. To win the Electoral College, candidate needs a majority of at least 270 electoral votes. If there are more than two candidates and no one hits 270, see that? 3 candidates and no one hits 270, that's very possible. Therefore, it is definitely going to be thrown into contingent election. And I actually think this is very likely. And what he said today was there's if you just look at Trump versus Kamala, it's 269 to 269. But if you put Mr. Kennedy in the race, I think you'll see Kamala can go down and Trump can go down. And as a result, who has the bargain? Who can control who becomes president? It's the guy who has the smaller electoral votes. But that didn't stop it in 1824 election, did it? Right? Let's keep reading. If there are more than 2 candidates and no one hits 270, that triggers a contingent election, a fallback process created by the 12th Amendment, where the House of Representatives selects a president and the Senate selects a vice president. All right, so now let me read you from the Protect Democracy article from 2023, August, okay, so a year and a day before Mr. RFK's statements. This is how they're going to tell you the losing party in the election on electoral votes ends up winning under contingent election. But this was just between the 2 candidates because neither one got 270. Since the ratification of the 12th Amendment, a contingent election for the presidency has only happened once. In 1825, the so-called corrupt bargain, when the House selected second place finisher John Quincy over Andrew Jackson. And this led to broad public frustration and a populist movement that elected Jackson in a landslide 4 years later. So that's how people react to these things. Today, it's possible that the Democrat and Republican candidates could tie with 269 electors each. But there's more a likely path to a contingent election. A third-party ticket wins a few electors. That means some of the 269 on each side go to him. It only takes a couple, 1 or 2, that block them getting 270, right? That's all he's got to do with a few electors and prevents anyone from getting 270. And that's what he's talking about. And that this person at CNN didn't know this, who's supposed to be an analyst about elections, did not. This is has to be his most humiliating moment in his career. But I pray that he will just say, I made a mistake. I should have known this law, and I was wrong. And let's start doing the analysis. And maybe what he could even do is stop being a judgmental person about RFK, and just no matter what it is, even though he's completely right every time these people throw dirt and smack at him, is they eventually learn he was right. Take this lesson, this bruising lesson, and next time just look it up on the internet, whatever he's talking about. He'll tell you about all kinds of things if you ask about vaccines and so on. And why don't you start interviewing the guy every single day? He will come on CNN every single day and allow you to confront him and try to put him down and try to criticize him, because he's got the willpower to win. And you might be surprised. You might actually like this guy. Anyway, and I would say this, in light of these possibilities, I would say the mainstream media has to start studying the 12th Amendment in detail, get legal experts, get Lawrence Tribe, get all kinds of people on there to tell you how it works, how it might play itself out, and start figuring out, do the American people have a third realistic choice that we can expect the House of Representatives to decide, you know what, even though we didn't get a majority vote, there's a majority consensus within the House of Representatives that it should be RFK. Very, very, I would say very plausible, depending upon how Mr. Trump responds to all this. All he has to do is say, hey, since Bobby was willing to be underneath me, if I clearly won 270, but he's got the control of who wins the 270 or not, and I don't want Kamala to get this, I'm willing to be a second fiddle in his administration if he's willing to let me go after the existential issues that we share in common, which is get rid of this endless wars, and bring the vaccines and the health issues to the fore of children, and issues like that. Whatever they have in this existential category, that is where they could have a compromise. And so Trump could take the second fiddle. And if he says, okay, this is going to be a totally different election than we've anticipated. All right, I'll put in links within this video description that will tell you how to look up that article from Project Democracy, and therefore you can get a very easily understood explanation of this rule that is called gibberish by this and cuckoo for coconuts by the CNN Analyst, the contingent election rule of the U.S. Constitution. Okay, God bless. Take care, everybody. Ciao. Bye.